And welcome to the Midday Show. A lot of interesting topics. First time we've been able to dive into something. First time, can I be honest with people? First time we've been live in a while, obviously, as Mark reaches into the fridge. This is what it's incredible to me. I give you like 5 warnings. I give
Today
you
you did.
I
Today
give you so many heads up and so much time to just kind of have it ready. And yet, like, you still, I don't mind that you had to go to the bathroom before. We all have to go to the bathroom before. The turning back into the fridge 5 seconds into the show is fascinating.
Is it? I am the, like, do you ever go to the car, get in the car, and you're like, no, I need one more thing, and you go back in and go back? Like, that's me.
Okay.
Like, right before it's not too late until we've left.
Yeah.
For some people, it's like, okay, I'm leaving the house, I'm getting in the car, and I'm going. For me, it's like, no, I'm not. It's not too late yet.
There's still time.
So yes, I could adjust my drink.
Here's the problem with the analogy: is you are not the driver of this show. Like, the car is already in motion, so you would be willing to jump out of the moving car, is what you're telling me.
Well, no, that's
okay. Well, that's what it's like when you go to the fridge and we're 10 seconds into the show.
I saw my drinks were low, and I was going to finish it in the middle of the show, and I didn't want to do that, so I figured I'd switch it up now.
It's understandable. Pawn shop recession, one of the best indicators of a recession, if you ask me. We're going to talk about that briefly. Some back to school stuff that I didn't mention this to you because I wanted your reaction. Like, I wanted to see your reaction to some of this stuff. Work from home. We mentioned Malcolm Gladwell, famous author. He believes that it's all a schmuckery. It's a travesty. It's a scam. It's a scam mockery. He's not a fan of it. And then I'm not done. I'm not over the Britney Griner stuff yet. I think there's still more to talk about. Her sentencing was at the end of last week, so we can go on to that. Some other random things. International Cat Day. Pete Davidson, your boy, broke up with Kim K. A lot going on.
Before my son told me that. Who broke up with who?
It's a great question. I don't know. I will know once we get to the segment. I type it in. I will find out the details. Here's what I'll say. Kardashian broke up with him. Anything outside of that story, I'm not buying.
Agreed.
Okay.
I don't know. Can't you get to the point where you're just like, listen, this guy scares me.
Oh, so I'm out. Like the Kanye West stuff is
I'm not taking a bullet for you.
It's possible. Before we dive into all of this important stuff, Mark, what are you doing? How you feeling today?
What are you doing?
How you feeling today?
I'm good. I have my Oreo shirt back. I've not forgiven them, but I kind of accept their apology for their trade deadline moves. And this is the stretch starts today. Like, for them, the rubber meets the road. They have like good series after good series. Like the Pirates, the Rangers, the Reds that they just went through. It's done. Now they've got Blue Jays, Red Sox, White Sox. Like it is, Tampa's in there. It is going to be so. And I just want to tell you this. This is what you have to look forward to when you have teenagers. They had a 30th anniversary celebration at Camden Yards because the stadium opened in '92.
Yeah.
And Mike was on the team in '92, and they had a bunch of people back, old people and kind of people who had, kind of carried it through. And so he was going to be part of the opening day, or not the opening day, the pregame festivities. Him and Eddie Murray were throwing out the first pitch. And I asked my son throughout the week, who is almost 16, still 15, do you want to go down? And they did. Mike did not have an allotment of extra tickets. I just tried to throw something in the trash can and missed. That's why I had to pick it up. And so I was like, well, but we can go online. We can get tickets, whatever. So, I want to go. No, I don't. It's just kind of like a teenager. And he's like, the game was 5:05.
Okay.
At 1:02 on Saturday, he wasn't even with me. He was at his mom's house. He texts me. He says, is it too late to go?
Mm-hmm.
I said, yes. He said, okay. At 1:10, I texted him back and said, well, we could probably make first pitch, but we'll miss the ceremony.
Okay.
He said, do you want to try? Yes. At 1:20, we left our house, and at 4:32, we were in our seats.
Nice.
That is world record time.
Yeah.
Following the speed limit the entire way, though.
Yeah.
That never went over. That little new bridge over there down helps.
That's an understatement.
It helps.
Yes. If you haven't been over it yet, I finally went over it when we were on our way to the hoop group stuff, down towards Lancaster. We went over it, and it's going to be a significant game changer when it's all finished. But yes, right now it's a game changer.
It's the first time I'd used it.
Okay.
And it was, yes, it helps.
Yep, makes a huge difference. I can't wait until that's done. Going to Harrisburg is going to be a breeze when that is finished.
I mean, just missing Nori right there. Just so much.
It's going to change everyone's perception of like going to Harrisburg. Because right now, like going to Harrisburg, it's like, do you really want to go through Lewisburg? And if you don't go through Lewisburg, you're kind of going through Milton and then Selinsgrove. And it's like, I mean, there's real questions when you think, I mean, all of that's going to be gone. I mean, it's going to take at the wrong time on a busy day, it's going to take 30 minutes off of that trip.
Maybe, yeah.
You don't think so?
Don't you think there are, like everything in life, people fall into two groups. Don't you think that there are people who just miss out on so much because like a drive to Harrisburg is it's just too far.
Okay.
It's just out of the realm of whatever.
Well,
and then you finally make the drive.
Yeah.
And you're like, it wasn't that bad.
Oh, but it is. The drive to Harrisburg is different. I think there's people like, I would rather go to Philly than go to Harrisburg.
Oh no,
yes.
Harrisburg's an hour.
No, Harrisburg's almost 2 hours, and if you hit it at the wrong time,
it's under 2 though.
And if you hit it at the wrong time, like if you're trying to go through Selinsgrove at 5 o'clock, like good luck.
You got to shimmy it over and take the back road.
No chance. Or you could just take a normal 2-lane highway, which is what we're going to be able to do in a couple.
Well, I mean, when it exists, but
it's going to.
So this is what
real quick. The Harrisburg trip is bad. You just tried to make it seem as if it's
not that bad.
It's pretty bad.
I've made because in going to Baltimore, you go by. I've made it 1,000 times. It's not that bad.
Lamesport past Selinsgrove deters people from going to Harrisburg.
Disagree.
You don't think so? No. You don't think there's people that are just like, oh well, if we're gonna go through Selinsgrove at 5 o'clock, we wouldn't get to Harrisburg until whatever. Like, no, we're not doing.
Well, then here's a thought.
You don't think people don't do that?
Don't go through.
You can't. If you work until 4 o'clock, you can't do anything about it, Mark.
Well,
Sorry, people work. Sorry, people work until 4.
Later.
Sorry, we all can at 1:10 decide we're going to Baltimore to see the Orioles game.
Can't you wait till later?
What do you mean wait till later? No, you got to be back.
You can see. I went to Susquehanna, so I know Selinsgrove.
Okay.
You can jig around the main road there, and it cuts a lot of time off.
So you don't think people are deterred at all?
It has never.
I think you're in the minority.
It has never bothered me. But so anyway, at noon I was home sitting on my deck. Heck, at 1 o'clock I was home sitting on my deck.
Mm-hmm.
At midnight I was home sitting at my kitchen table, and in between drove to Baltimore, took in a major league game, and drove home.
Congrats.
That's
nice.
A record.
Good trip.
And I think
living the American dream.
Close.
Recession.
41,000 people.
Recession? What recession?
41,000. The fact that the Pirates were there helped. There's a lot of Pirates fans.
Yeah.
Because 41,000. So there you go. They shouldn't have traded Trey Mancini away, but what are you going to do?
Nothing you can do about it.
Nothing I can do. All right, what do you got on the list? Recession.
I tried to make a nice little recession transition there, but you were how many people?
Sorry,
41,000?
41,000.
41,000. Rick Harrison, have you ever watched the Pawn Shop Show?
I just I had my car in the garage. I was just watching it. And what's funny is I had someone coming to pick me up, and I was just sitting there rooting. Because usually when you're waiting anywhere like that for a ride, you're like, where are the people? Where's my ride? Where's my ride?
Right.
I'm sitting there thinking, please don't come yet. I want to see how much this is worth. Please don't come yet. So I'm like, it's 20. The episode's over in 8 minutes. I just want it. So yes. I mean, I don't go out of my way to find it.
Sure.
But it's one of those. It's hard to turn on.
Once it's on, it's fascinating. So Rick Harrison, who owns the shop, he's kind of like the lead
star
of the show. He came on Fox the other day, and he essentially said that a pawn shop is a great way to tell if you're in a recession or not. Go ahead.
This is the story I wanted to tell you and Jerry earlier, and I forgot.
Okay.
And maybe everyone knows this, and I just thought you guys would find it interesting. Watching that show in the garage, did you know that Mad Magazine started out as a comic book?
I did know that.
But because back then, and this again shows how they thought like comic books were evil and ruining the youth of America.
Like video games.
Correct. So they altered it to a magazine because there was like less scrutiny on it or something.
Yes.
But for the first 2 years or something, I did not know that. I did not know there was this comic book coalition that thought the world was going to hell through comic books.
So there's an interesting documentary on Netflix that's about like ad agencies and like the beginning of marketing like in New York City and kind of admin and how it came up through. And then I'm pretty sure I have the right magazine. I'm pretty sure in an episode of Mad Men, they talk about what you were just talking about. So for those, that's just the only reason it's on my radar at all. But yes, I knew
because
that
on pawn shops, the one lady brought in like a first copy of Mad Comics.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm trying to $2,500, $3,000, something like that. It was in good condition. It was the guy. They had an expert. He said on a 1 to 10, it was like a 6.5 or 7.
The idea of comics being like the video games of its time is hilarious.
Isn't it crazy the things we look back on?
I think people are going to look back on it now and say like kids don't read anymore. And I think I disagree. I think kids read now more than ever because they're reading the stuff that's on their phone.
Oh, correct.
I actually
read all the time.
I actually think I think about how much I read in college versus how much I read now just getting on like Twitter. I read way more now than I did in college. It's not even close.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we're going to look back at that and laugh too. So Rick Harrison says like we're definitely in a recession. He says this was Rick Harrison. He says most people don't realize that 20% of the adult population do not have a bank account. They don't have normal banking. So he added that if they need a little extra money, this is what they have to do. They come down to the pawn shop to try to take care of themselves. Harrison also said that in Las Vegas, you can see it more dramatically because it's a spread out town. People need to have cars to get places. He says the gas prices are killing people here sooner than other places across the country. The price of food, inflation, it's gone nuts, especially in Las Vegas. You can see the recession here sooner than in other parts of the country.
I did know. I heard that when I lived in Baltimore, when they talked about the people who don't have a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there are way more than, I think, did we talk about it on here when Ray Lewis, the Hall of Fame linebacker for the Ravens, he was a first round draft pick, late in the first round. And he had talked about when they talk about money managers and how do these guys go broke. And he said, no one in my family had a checking account.
Yeah.
So for him to be like, well, who handles your investments? You didn't even have a bank. So, but I'd heard that for these people in especially in urban areas, that the pawn shop becomes their pseudo bank.
Yeah.
Because they'll, hey, we're
whatever you have.
Here goes the DVD player. He's giving me $30. Then when I'm a little more flush, I go back down. I buy the DVD player back.
Yeah.
Now there's a fee that goes with
that's your interest,
but it goes back and forth. And I did know that.
No, just interesting. He ended with, I really believe that lower income people are affected much worse right now. And that's what's going on in the economy. Upper income people aren't seeing it yet. The government isn't quite seeing it yet. But at pawn shops, you can tell that we are in a recession.
No, I believe it. And what's fascinating here is there's still jobs everywhere. And when you drive down the highway, you see every third billboard is about we need employees.
Yeah.
So it is, which that will go back into one of our work from home things. I'm one ahead, but it is usually when you go with recession. Historically, we've thought if people don't have money, people don't have opportunities to work.
Right.
And that's not where we're at right now.
No, it's not. The back to school stuff. Do you want me to dive into the work from home, the Gladwell first? Did you want to tie into it, or you want to go?
It doesn't matter. No, I don't think it matters.
The back to school stuff's interesting. I don't know how much you've read about this or what you've seen. There was some interesting statistics because you're a math guy, so I like to throw statistics at you. I like to make you guess what you think some of these statistics are.
17.
Pennsylvania. There's going to be a teacher shortage. I would argue there already is a teacher shortage, depending on where you live and how much you're seeing it. There is a decrease in people applying for their teacher certification. Would you like to guess the percentage of the decrease of teacher certification in the state of Pennsylvania?
So you're saying that people who got an elementary ed degree, but now are not taking the test?
Correct. So the easiest way would be, how many less people do you think in 2022 are taking the teacher certification now than they were 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Yes.
I think the number is significant. I'm going to say something like 25 or 30%.
So according to the Morning Call, which I believe is the Lehigh Valley paper.
I know, it's one.
According to the Morning Call in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania teacher certifications have dropped by 66%.
66.
Yes. The supply of new teachers in Pennsylvania and across the country has reached a breaking point because of the plummeting numbers of young educators either removing themselves from the degree or failing to take their certifications, no longer wanting to be teachers.
Huh.
Yes. 66% is massive.
Wow.
A lot of ways to go here. This is former teacher, right? People that went through and got their education degrees and everything else. I think there are a lot of people like myself, a lot of people like you, that, not saying we would have been the best teachers, but we certainly, at a minimum, we would have sufficed.
Killed it.
I feel like we would have sufficed as teachers. I feel as if for the last decade, 2 decades, they have been chased out. Just the money, the resources, even just like the lack of opportunity, like going through like the middle, like when I got out of college, like there just wasn't jobs in like your local communities. Like if you wanted to get a teaching job, you had to either go to like an epicenter or you had to leave the state. I think it's now coming back around and it's going to bite us. It's biting a lot of states, but I think for Pennsylvania especially.
Yeah, and that would be fascinating to have some teachers, some principals to look into it and to get their opinion from the inside. These are the things that I would extrapolate off the top. Go ahead.
So the interesting thing, and I was looking up, I was trying to find different numbers across the country just to compare it to Pennsylvania. Right. The interesting thing about Pennsylvania, and this is what makes the state unique, while certifications for teachers are down 66%, certification for administrators has never been higher. And I found that incredibly telling isn't the right word because I'm not exactly sure what it's saying, but I do know that when you walk into a school today, there are way more administrators than there were 10 years ago.
Well, and it's also saying the teachers want to get out of the classroom and they want to go administrate.
Yes, but I'm trying to think how to say this. Do they want to get out of the classroom because they want to get out of the classroom, or do they want to get out of the classroom because the only way to make a wage that they can justify their degree is to become an administrator?
Oh, I don't think the wages are bad now. Do you? Don't they make $70,000?
What's that for a teacher? Yes, but you have to remember, like most teachers are, like obviously they're not doctor level in the sense of like years in school, but most teachers are like beyond a 4-year degree. What do you mean? They have to go back and get a secondary degree.
Well, they have to take more credits, but that's
correct.
Okay.
So
but that's bogus.
Oh, no,
they're just going through the motions.
So what other profession do you have to go back to get the degree, but then you still stay paid as if you are like an undergrad? There's no other profession that works.
Oh, no, they get a raise once.
I know, but it's not what you do in other professions.
But it's okay.
In other professions, if you go to school for 6, 8, 10, 12 years, if you're like a doctor or a dentist, whatever it is, I mean, like you're making way more than 60, 70 grand. Way more.
Well, if you're a doctor, dentist, yes.
I understand. So this is the point I'm making. It's the only profession in which you are held to getting certain degrees and certifications and so many years of schooling, but then you are not financially rewarded like other professions in the open market.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I think teachers going back and taking these classes, from the things that I've heard of, are a joke.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it doesn't make them better teachers.
I agree.
It is the way that education
talks
about how important we are.
Yes.
So we're going to make sure you keep getting educated, but it doesn't. And it's not the only thing. Like in real estate, we have to go back and get, recertified every 2 years. It doesn't make you a better realtor. You go over some law changes.
Yeah, but realtors are competing in an open market, meaning like you're not, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not capped.
Correct.
Like your performance is going to dictate what you make this
Correct.
month. Okay. Teachers don't have that open market. Like they don't have
but they have the protection of their terrible performance does not affect their money either.
Correct. But that doesn't help good teachers.
Correct.
Helps bad teachers. It doesn't help good ones.
Correct.
I think most of what you and I just said we agreed upon. I think the thing that we don't is why teachers are becoming administrators. I don't think teachers are becoming administrators because they want to leave the classroom. I think teachers are becoming administrators because it's the only way for them to take a significant pay step.
Well, in the field, yes.
Yes.
I agree with that.
I think if you ask most teachers, would you prefer, like, we'll give you X amount and you can decide if you want to be an administrator or a teacher. I think most would say, I'd love to keep teaching, but I have to leave. I can't keep.
And that's an interesting question. I wouldn't know that, but that's an interesting question. The other, just dealing with a veteran teacher, because in any industry, if you've got a teacher who's been doing this 25 years, 30 years, or in any job,
right?
If you've got an accountant that's been doing it for 25, 30 years, and and he's telling young people, don't ever do this, this sucks.
Yeah.
Then it would obviously have an effect.
Yes.
If you have teachers who have been doing it for 25 and 30 years and they're telling people going to college, teaching is not the same as when I started, I wouldn't do it. That's certainly not helping either.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So Wolf and the state of Pennsylvania came out. They said that they have a 3 to 5 year plan to try to help with teacher shortages. The goal is to they already know they're going to need thousands of new teachers by, I believe, the year 2025. So they have this 3 to 5 year plan in place. And part of the goal.
My last kid graduates in 2025.
There you go. So part of the goal, part of this mission is exactly what you're describing, is how do you make teaching cool again? How do you make it so that kids that are graduating from high school aren't going into college and all they've heard for 4 years is how awful it is being a teacher? And that is part of what they're trying to tackle.
Don't you think, we'll throw this out, because again, not only are we former teachers, but we coach, so we're around teenagers all the time. Don't you think there's still this political correctness? We say the cancel culture or whatever, that parents have so much effect that there is the ability to actually connect and relate and have a positive influence on kids nowadays. It's not always going to be PG. Okay. When you're dealing with 16 and 17 and 18-year-old kids, mm-hmm. if you're forced to deal with them in a PG way,
okay,
you're not going to connect. Or you're going to connect less sincerely than if you're allowed to kind of treat them like they're an adult. Because at 17, you can go see an R-rated movie.
I mean, maybe I'm simplifying it too much. I still think, regardless of what you're doing, if you show up every day and you feel like you're not justified, you're not compensated, you're not heard by, you're like all of these factors, your main goal or the thing that you actually think you care about slowly fades into the back of your head. And so, like, I think most teachers get into it thinking, I'm going to connect with kids and I'm going to change lives and I'm going to matter.
And I'm going to make a difference.
And what happens after 3, 4, 5 years is, like, the system makes you bitter. And it naturally makes you feel pigeonholed. It makes you feel uncompensated. It makes you feel like you're not respected. And so I feel like a lot of those things, like the things that you and I would like to talk about, like about kids and I think what ends up happening is it becomes a back burner for teachers, and rightfully so. Like, I just don't think the profession is doing a lot for them.
Don't you think, when you were saying that, don't you think the same thing, you could make the same argument for police officers? That they go in and the job hardens them and they go in trying to be positive and trying to make a difference. And some of them obviously continue on, but some of them are just hardened by what they deal with every day. And
I think there's a lot of professions like that where it's not even about what you're doing. It's just simple, like, what are you encountering repetitively? Like, you may have a good Tuesday, but if consistently your Wednesday, Thursday is rough, it doesn't matter what you did Tuesday. It doesn't matter how you feel. You're eventually, the consistency of what's rough wears you thin, and it takes away the good parts of it.
I think too. And this is purely speculation, but and again, from coaching, it's less than teaching, but it's the same. There's the aspect at home that no matter what you try to instill in the player and what you try to get across to the player, mm-hmm. when they go home, you're not involved in that conversation. and I say the word damage, and that's not the right word, but like all that you've tried to accomplish can be torn down by conversations at home. And I can only imagine how frustrating it would be for a teacher. This would probably start at the younger levels, because by the time they get into high school, there's different issues. But in the middle school, or even at the elementary, maybe mostly at the elementary level, that when I'm sure teachers can tell that with these parents, I am never going to get through to this kid, because the kid's never wrong. The parents have no accountability. The parents aren't involved. They don't follow it. And no matter how much I try with this kid, all I'm going to be able to do is survive the year. I'm not going to be able to make a difference with this kid because of what he deals with at home. And not necessarily abuse or neglect, but just sometimes the parents come in and the kid's never wrong, or the kid doesn't have to do his homework, or the kid stays up till whenever he wants to. That would be frustrating, the bad parenting that you can't overcome as a teacher.
I think, yes, everything you're saying is correct. I think the challenge for teachers right now, and I'm generalizing because I know there are some out there that don't care and there are some that care. And generally, I think the challenge for teachers right now, if the description that you just gave about a kid, I think there was a point in time where teachers felt respected and compensated enough that they would fight that fight. And even if they knew the odds of them getting through to a kid were low, they were still going to make the attempt. And I think what has happened over time is, as they feel less compensated and they feel less heard, and eventually you just get to the point where it's like, okay, well then I'm going to focus on the ones that are easy, or the kids that I can help, and the ones that are too far gone, they're too far gone because I'm not compensated enough to care about it.
But
that's what I think is
and
happening.
I don't disagree with that. Is it because they don't get the administrative support and to stand up to the parents? And is the reason they don't get the administrative support is because societally they know that if the parents get too loud, then it just causes problems. And then the school board gets stuck, and the school board doesn't want to fight with the parents because then they get voted out. And then so all these people and the superintendent at the end of the day, and all these people that rely on the school board. So
I think there's pieces of the pie. I think what you just described is certainly a slice of the pie, and probably a bigger one, right? But I still think there's this aspect of it's amazing what people will do when they feel respected, when they feel when they feel appreciated. Like if they just feel like I have a value and people recognize I have a value. And I think as time has gone on, that has slipped away from teachers.
From who respects them less?
Just parents, kids, administrators in the state. I think teachers feel less and less respected every year.
And I agree with that. Yeah. I think this is my total not hypothetical. I'm looking for a word and I can't come up with it. This is my guess. There's a better word out there than guess. It's just missing me. That they, if the teacher felt that, especially a veteran teacher who's been around 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, whatever, who knows what's going on, if they walked into the principal's office and said, this is what's up, and I need you, and the principal's just like, I 100% have your back. I don't know how much that happens in the world anymore, because there's a level of they have to play politician, because for the principal to 100% have the teacher's back, they have to look at the parent and say, sit down and shut up, you are the problem. And I don't know if they can do that anymore.
I agree. But I think what happens a lot of times is the teacher becomes almost like a middle.
Yes.
And so what happens is they're getting crap thrown up at them. They're getting crap thrown down from the top at them. And they're just stuck in the middle of it. And they're not, and again, I understand what you were saying. I'm not saying that teachers don't make if a teacher is making 60 to 70 in PA compared to the rest of the country, they're doing pretty well.
Yes.
Because there's some states in this country where it's pitiful what a teacher makes.
Yes.
So in the context of the country, yes, Pennsylvania teachers are paid well. In the context of what a Pennsylvania teacher is expected to do, the degrees that they are expected to get, and what they actually get in the open market compared to other people in the same circumstances, it's not that much. And so I think they're getting it from all angles. And then on top of it, they feel like they're not compensated. I'm amazed at anybody that's able to stay in the profession and stay 100% motivated. I'm unbelievably impressed because they're either oblivious to what's going on around them, which I don't think they are, or they have a mental fortitude that most of us would not be able to uphold.
No, and I get that too. So let me ask you this. We'll take it off to a little bit of a different road. Do you think it's because the public school system is so archaic and that now they need to adjust what is taught, how it's taught? And I'll give you an example. Hughesville, or is it the East Lake Cumming School District or whatever, Hughesville High School. They have a kind of like a multimedia department. Okay. They broadcast their basketball games and their football games. Mm-hmm. They may do other games. Those are the only ones I've ever seen. It is student run. It is student announced. Mm-hmm. I think mostly. I shouldn't say, but like they have the technology. They have a person who teaches this, and they've been doing it for a while now. Like they were ahead of the curve. Are these things with that the world is so TikTok and video and phone and technology and whatever? Shouldn't we be teaching things like that since that's where the world is going, as opposed to I'm trying to think of what other stuff, because we don't want to lose history. We don't want to lose. But aren't there more real world, real life applicable things that they could be doing? And on the flip side of it, there's a shortage of laborers. And is it crazy that we teach high school kids how to drywall? Is it crazy that we teach high school kids, basic carpentry, basic auto mechanics? Are these things that should go in, or just the VOTEC kids?
No. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go off. This is the main point that I'll stick with what you said. I think that if you look at who's making these choices, they are people that are highly educated within the state of Pennsylvania. They have multiple degrees. They're considered doctors, right? Like these are people that are writing papers and they're researching and they're studying and doing all this stuff.
Right.
They're making the decisions. And guess what those type of people value? They value test scores. They value the things that got them to where they are, like research papers and doctorates and all these different things. So to them, like that shows ability. It shows how smart you are. It shows what you're capable of. Whether or not a kid can drywall, like, I don't even know if the people making those choices in the state of Pennsylvania, that's not their first concern. And that's, to me, that is like the deeper lying issue, is the people that are deciding what matters in our education system are the most educated. And that's what they value, is how many, can you write a 10-page paper? Can you pass a bubble test, A, B, C, D, E? And I think
I'm good at bubble tests.
I believe that. I don't doubt that for a second. So I think one of the bigger issues that they have is that they don't have people in place normally that understand that in the day-to-day value. I just had to, like, this is a bad example.
That's what we love on this show.
I have bad examples. I have been trying to fix the air conditioning on the one side of my house now for about a solid week, like trying not to call somebody and trying to figure it out. It is like the blind leading the blind. But again, like in the world I grew up in, those were not the things that, like, I got an English degree. Like, could I write a 15-page paper? Like,
in the world that you grew up in, you said, "Hey, Dad."
None of those things necessarily, like, and so all I'm saying is, why are things the way they are? I always look at the top. I think the people at the top are highly educated. Good for them. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I'm not saying they're not smart people. But the things that they value are very clearly different than maybe what society itself values.
Well, and I've said this for years. The people, you're right. The people at the top who went all the way up through education obviously loved education.
They loved
because
it.
That's why they did it.
There was nothing,
and they love it the way it works. They love it. Worked for them. They enjoyed it.
Member,
why would they do anything?
Let me tell this story. I have a family member who is almost through their education. I think we're pushing 14 years to finally get where they want to be within their education. And I've said before, his ability to merit his worth on what a test score is the reason he's going to make it. Nothing matters more to him than the validation of when someone slides that paper back in front of him, it says he passed. And that validation is all he needs. And because of that, he will get through all of this education and he will get to where he wants to go. There is a plethora of people. I used your word, plethora. There's a plethora of people.
That's not my word. You use it every show.
I know. I know, but you always point it out when I use it. There's a plethora of people who don't need that validation. Like that, like the idea of a test score coming back and saying, like, you're an A. It's like people just don't live that way. They don't think that way. They don't work that way. And I think that's the biggest issue with the education system right now. You have a system set up for people who really like tests and really like the validation of passing a test. Like, I'm so smart. And then you have the rest of society kind of looking and going like, well, yeah, but you probably can't change the tire on your car. So how smart? And so it's just that.
Well, and the thing about education that is unique, when you take anything, like as we talked about, the people at the top of education came up through education. They loved education all the way through. When you have a wrestling coach, you want a guy who came up through wrestling, who coached, who loved it. And that works perfectly because all the kids in the wrestling room are there because they want to wrestle. When you have a guy that owns a garage, he probably grew up in a garage. He loves cars. He loves tractors. He's a wrench turner, and he's good at it. And all the people who work for him are just like him. But when you get an education and you get these people who make all the rules for everyone, they were born in education. They loved education. Yes. It's the greatest thing ever. But now they've got a whole room of people. Some of the kids like it. Some of the kids hate it. And many of the kids are in between. Mm-hmm. Well, what do we do for the kids who either hate it or in between? And those are because the kids who are nerdy, who do well on tests, they're going to continue on in education. They're going to go off to college. They're going to get their advanced degrees, and they're going to stay in the academic world somewhere. Mm. What about the other kids? And that's, to go back to the original, I don't know if the teachers are allowed to really have that impact on the other kid. The kid who, whether he gets a 92 or an 86 or an 82, doesn't really matter.
I will say this because I think this is going to end sooner than anyone realizes. And now we're just sitting out back on the porch late at night, like hypothesizing. I really think academia started with big money. It was where rich people sent their kids so that they could kind of keep them in the system, in the cycle, and keep everybody else at bay. That's how it started.
But Ben Franklin knew that we needed a public school system.
I understand, but that's why there was a private school system, and that's how this has worked. What's happening now is you have kids not going to college. You have people making millions of dollars on the internet doing whether it's being a brander, whether it's being a marketer, whether it's getting into finance, whatever it may be. People are becoming millionaires without really having any attachment or loyalty to an educational institution. And so what you're going to start to see happening is the money's slowly going to start to move away from these private and public institutions. And education is going to have to actually prove that they're worth it again. Because you've had a system where for decades, education really didn't have to prove they were worth it because the system dictated if you have this degree, you can go work for Uncle Johnny at wherever and you'll get a 401k and life will be great. That is slowly, the money is trickling out of that system slowly but surely.
You're right.
It's going to shift.
The public education system is the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
That now something else has come along and they're like, well, you have to re-examine yourself for the first time in a long, long time.
Yes.
No, I don't disagree with that.
You have brands and influencers that are hiring kids before they've even finished their college degree to come and work for them because they know how coding works. They understand how social media works. They understand how Web3 works. Like they understand how all this stuff works. And the 25-year-old person who's developing this stuff doesn't care that you don't have a college degree. And listen, don't get me wrong. There will still be like your pillars of society, like transportation and travel. Right. And like you're still going to have these pillars of society where like if old white guys in suits want to make you have a degree, okay, like that's the game you're going to have to play. What I'm saying, though, is like there's going to be new pillars in the next 10 years, and they're going to be like, we could care less if you have a college degree. And it's already happening.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Do you want to dive into the work from home or the Britney Griner? I'll let you choose.
Do we want to do these today or you want to hold off?
We can hold off. That's fine with me.
Yeah, let's hold, because those are both good, and they're going to take some time. We've already babbled for 40 minutes.
Okay.
So let's because neither of them are really essential to talk.
I could talk about the Britney Griner one for an hour.
I could talk. I think the work from home one is really interesting too.
I agree with that as well. All right, we'll hold off on them. Anything else before we go?
No. Go O's. Big week. Big week. Here we go. Oh yes, today is I think fall. I know football. It's heat acclimation day. I assume soccer does something similar.
Okay.
So we are at that time again. Football starts today. We had parents meeting last night. Show up today and they fit like. Well, this is actually official. Back when I played, it didn't start yet.
Okay.
They didn't have this week. But somewhere along, they realized health-wise it was more important that they have to do this heat acclimation thing. They don't have.
Was it health or was it liability?
Was it what?
Was it health or was it
Oh,
liability?
that's probably the second.
Thank you.
I will say this, though, and I don't know what's happened in the world. I can tell you in my 3 years of playing high school football, I knew of 2 concussions.
Okay.
There's with concussions every week.
Yeah.
I got my bell. I got hit. I got ear hold, and I got up. My ear was ringing. And I was trying to get it to stop.
Yeah.
I kept playing. I didn't have a concussion. So I don't know. And I'm not saying they're wrong now, but it just seems like we didn't even have a trainer.
Yeah.
We had a team doctor on game night, but like at practice, kids get hurt. We didn't have a trainer. The coaches looked over. They had ice. I don't know what the difference is. I really don't.
Yeah. Protocol is always an interesting word. And again, it would be interesting to have on. Maybe we can get someone from Susquehanna Health to come on and talk, like an AT or somebody, to talk about it. Because the concussion protocol is the key word. Like, I know, like, you can go in to concussion protocol, but it doesn't mean you have a concussion. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's some leniency there as far as like maybe why so many people end up like having to go through this, even though maybe they don't have a full-fledged concussion. But I'm in this weird middle ground where I truly believe the concussion stuff is bad. It's very real.
Correct.
When they're cutting these people open and it's the tau stuff. Have you ever read about it? It's TAU.
I know the CTE.
It's okay. Yeah. CTE, tau, like it's all built up and it's really, really bad. On the flip side of it, I agree with you in the sense of like, I just don't understand how it changed. It feels like overnight. It feels like one day it was like you maybe had 1 or 2 people had a concussion. To all of a sudden it was like overnight. It was like half the people who get hit in the head now have to sit out for a week. Like, right. I agree with you. The switch doesn't make a ton of sense. The only thing that I can justify it is that because of the protocol, people are now identifying it. So even if you yourself don't realize it or show symptoms, the protocol is catching it where it didn't before.
And I understand the danger of it. Don't get me wrong. And the risk to reward. But yes, it's just, and I don't know of any of nobody I played with. Now in college, I remember a kid had a concussion on the mat. I think in college, I only really remember one.
Yeah.
But there's none of these guys that now, all these years later, you're like, wow, he's really affected because, he got hit in the head too many times. He didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It is interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's almost like, how did we survive back then?
A little bit. I don't disagree with that at all. This is the one thing that I've said about high school football. And you and I have talked about this. If I have kids and if they did play high school football, to me, it is a win-win. If they decided to play, great. Lots of lessons to be learned. I'm fine with it. If they didn't play, great. Like, a lot of health benefits. Like, I have no issues. So to me, it's a win-win whether or not to play high school football. I'm getting to the age now where like people are hitting second puberty. Like your body starts to take on the years of your youth a little bit at 35. I can tell you right now, if a lot of my friends walked in the door right now, you could tell which ones played football and which ones didn't. It doesn't take long to figure out who was taking hits and who was not for about a 6-year span.
Do I look like I was taking hits?
You look like you were taking hits. But does that surprise you or does it not?
I don't think you can tell.
I think you can tell.
I don't think you can tell. But I agree with you from the standpoint, like I loved high school football. I still do. And my son he played 1 year youth football and didn't like it. And he wasn't a rough and tumble kid. He was more of a hand-eye coordination. He liked basketball and he liked baseball. And I never thought he was going to play football. And then in junior high, he went back out. Now he loves it. But he's quarterback, so he's still not rough and tumble. But yeah, when you're as a parent, it's like I'm a basketball coach, and I remember my oldest daughter had always played basketball, and she was fine. She didn't love it. She wasn't. And I thought it was about her junior year, and I told her mom it wouldn't surprise me if she didn't play. And she went out. I think she went out for about a week, and then she didn't want to play anymore. And my whole thing too was, as people like, you start the season, you should finish the season. You know, from being around it, girls suffer more devastating knee injuries than boys by way more.
Sure.
And the last thing I wanted was my daughter, who didn't really care. She just did it because she always had. You know, when you're in third grade, hey, do you want to go play basketball on Saturday morning? Yeah, I'll go. And I'm like, you know, when you get to the point that it matters, and she didn't really care. She liked lots of other things better, including academics. And I was like, I don't want to see her, you know, blow out her knee doing something she doesn't care about, and then have to like suffer through all the rehab and the surgery and all that stuff. So when she told me she didn't want to play anymore, I was relieved. I wasn't sad.
Can I throw you under the bus a little bit?
Of course.
Okay. I feel like your perspective on some of it is different because you were a quarterback.
Well, I don't disagree with that.
Okay. Because there are like
in college I played wide out, but I get what you're saying.
Like there's a I remember like as a point guard in college, I tried to be as chummy and as grateful to the big men as I could possibly be. Because I understood physically they were doing things that I didn't have to go through. And I'm sure as a quarterback, you are as chummy as you can possibly be with your offensive lineman, yada, yada. So there are times when you think about like how you feel or my experience and all that. I know that mine was significantly different than the 250-pound center who had to bust his butt under the rim and bang with people. I would go games in college where maybe I'd get hit once or twice. And I mean, that was a 5-second possession for our center. And I just know that.
Dude, I had a game, and this is why people make fun of quarterbacks. And I had a game that it rained beforehand. I hate playing when I'm wet. It just, I'd much rather have it be 25 degrees and dry than 70 degrees and raining as a quarterback. So we were playing this game, but just because you can't dry your hand when your pants get wet, you can't dry your hands off on anything, and it's just a mess. So I had a whole backup uniform. They'd let us buy our jerseys the year before because they just replaced them. So I had the same number, the same color, and I had an extra pair of pants. I had everything. So I was ready to change at halftime.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to play wet.
Sure.
I was bone dry except for my knee because I was the holder. So I had to get down once to hold an extra point. I hadn't been on the ground yet until there was like 2 minutes to go in the first half, and I handed off the ball, and a guy running through to like get to the ball carrier just shoved me out of the way, and I fell. And I was so mad. I was like, I almost made it to halftime, and I was dry, and now I'm wet because you idiot didn't run around me. You ran through me. So I totally know, like, you can do a lot as a quarterback and not get hit. And I'm not talking about the Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers, the guys. Even at high school, depending on the system, depending on how good your running game is, you can do a lot of getting out of bounds and throwing the ball away. And so yes, the quarterback's world it's not like the kicker, but it can be sometimes.
I think you can tell, like if you lined up a group of people at the age of 40 and you had them do a couple of things, you could tell pretty quickly who played college, like who played high school football and who didn't. It doesn't take much.
Maybe. I never thought of it that way, but maybe.
And again, it's not a negative. Like I said, like if I played football till 9th grade, I have no issue with it. Like if my kid played football, I have no issue with it. But like if they decided not to, I don't know. I don't know if it's the worst thing in the world.
Well, there is a value to, like for the parents who struggle with the kids who want to stop or don't want to like my middle daughter hates sports, and we joke about it now. But she was big into theater and she likes to sing and all these other aspects. And it's just, you just want your kids to find something that they enjoy, and not. I mean, obviously, it's great when they're doing something that you enjoy. But like I've learned a lot of appreciation for the theater because of my daughters, because I didn't grow up a theater family. And now I'm on the board. So it's like, yes, I do feel for the kids, and you can tell the kids, maybe by the time you get to high school, you don't see it very much anymore. But in Little League, you can tell the kids who don't want to be there, but dad really wants them there.
Sure.
And those kids aren't having fun.
No.
And you would think that there's someplace else that they could have fun if they were allowed to do whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, maybe. I was forced to try everything.
You talking about like vegetables now? Are we at the dinner table here? Or wait?
Sure. Like you and I talked. Like I did some piano, drums. I did some drama.
That's the rumor. No one's
I
ever
did
seen any
sports.
of this. But
I
mean, we hear these things.
I know. But the point I'm making to you is like until I was probably 14, like I was kind of like, you're trying this, you're trying that, you're trying this. And then once I was 15, I got very little flack for not wanting to do something.
Is it because they loved your sister more and they didn't talk to you very much?
I'm not sure what that has to do with anything.
I was just asking. Maybe they gave you no flack because they're like, we don't like Jeff. And we're not going to talk.
I like to say that my sister needed them more. No, I've told you before. My sister is one of the most naturally gifted people I know. She is disgustingly good at things on the first try.
So that's why your parents loved her more.
I don't know if loved is the right word. This is the best part. Here, this is what's funny. You do this to me, but if I do it to you, it's kind of cruel.
But it's true.
Like I understand, but your brother's a Hall of Fame pitcher, so I kind of bite my tongue and I don't really give it back to you. But
no, it is. I just told someone the other day, it's like, if you want my mom to listen to what you're saying, have Mike tell it. Because it rings a lot harder when Mike says it than when I say it.
I'm just saying, you'd like to give me crap about this stuff, and then I kind of bend and glare it, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if I say anything back, I'm a jerk.
Listen, I can relate.
I'm a jerk if I say anything back.
I am right there with you, buddy.
But I'm assuming that was probably Mike in your world, but like my sister was that person in my world where most people, like, they have a friend or a relative or somebody that just naturally, for me, it was my sister. She just naturally did things on the first try. And I would just look at her. And again, like my sister's 2.5 years younger than me. And I can remember being like 14, 15, 16 and watching her do stuff. And I would just be like, it takes me years to like rep some of this stuff out. My sister just like picks up a bat and is great.
Well, physically, he could do whatever he wants.
Sure.
And actually, he was a good student too. It's just, but yeah, there was nothing physical. When he tried to play golf, he could hit it a mile. And
the neat thing is how, like, for me, I always saw my sister as I'm trying to think of the right way. It wasn't jealousy. Like some people, when they see that, it's immediate jealousy. Like, oh, she's perfect, or oh, he's perfect. That was never the case for my sister. For me, it was always, I always felt this immediate like potential. Like I always wanted her to try to, and my sister just, it was kind of like, yeah, like I'm just having fun. Like, yeah, like I'm just doing it. And so that was the frustration. It wasn't a jealous frustration. It was like
you could be really good.
It was like do you even know what you're capable of frustration? But no, I was never jealous of her. I was just always excited and bummed sometimes that she wasn't as excited as I was.
I don't think the sibling, I don't know. I don't think there's, I mean, obviously there's sibling rivalries because the cliche exists and there must be, I think it's, I just assume it's rare. I think most people really, really, really root for their siblings. And I can't even think of people who don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's socially planted. Just my opinion. I think internally, I think most of us want our siblings to do great. I think what happens is when the external factors, like people start nudging you like, hey, you're not Mike, or like, hey, like Lindsay did that better. Like that's when the external forces start to, well, I'm just saying, that's when the external forces start to work against you.
I just know people have asked me like, oh, you're not jealous of your brother. It's like, well, he's my brother.
Right.
Like when he was 8 and I was 5, I rooted for my brother.
Sure.
When he was 11 and I rooted for, when he's 30 and I'm 27, I root.
Right.
So I don't know. But that would be an interesting conversation of people who have real sibling rivalries and why.
Well, what's interesting is that you're the younger sibling.
Right.
Which I feel like would have made yours easier because it's easier to justify what's happening. Like, of course, my brother's better. He's 3 years older.
Correct. And there's nobody cooler than your big brother.
The fascinating thing for me was like my sister was 2.5 years younger.
See, and I always, because I've thought about this, obviously being the younger, like what would it have been like if I was older and he was world class and I was just, mature. But in your aspect, don't you feel like a little protecting of it? Like
a little bit. She was always, I'm trying to think how to say this. it wasn't so much about success, but she just carried herself in such a way that I always felt like she was going to be okay. I never felt like she was the little one who needed to be protected. Like that just wasn't her personality ever.
I know what you mean.
So
but
from
I can
afar, I was always watching from afar but I never felt overprotective of her.
I just always picture like big brother at the playground with little brother, playing basketball, working on his game, trying to help. And it was almost like I'm a little bit of a coach and a brother and all these things too. So yeah, I don't know. It would be very interesting for me to sit down with someone who thought they had a real sibling rivalry. And my guess with sibling rivalry would come from above, and that the parents treated one of the kids way different for a reason.
Interesting.
And that would be where the jealousy comes from, because mom likes you more because you are interested in what mom's interested in, or whatever the case.
I see. That's so funny. I always felt like my parents, catered isn't the word. I always felt like my parents really cared about what my sister did, but I always thought that was because she was the girl and she was younger, and like I was so narrow-minded and like, this is what I love and this is what I'm doing, and just not that I didn't need guidance, but I always felt like she appreciated the guidance more than I did.
Well, I think and you got to a point where the baby of the family, whether there's 2 siblings, whether there's 3 siblings, or whether there's 7 siblings, they all talk about the baby of the family.
Sure.
And that the baby gets special treatment and kid gloves and all that.
The interesting, and then because we're rambling, the interesting thing for me,
because we never ramble.
I know, never. The interesting thing for me, and I've never told her this, she may know though, just from like conversations, she was my greatest motivator by far. I mean, she's the reason I'm able to kind of like rep stuff out when other people would give up. Because for me, it was always like making sure I was one leg ahead. So there was like this competitive motivator of like, she's so naturally good at some of this stuff that I have to work to make sure that I'm just as good, if not better.
You've told me this. What was her best sport?
Her best sport was probably volleyball.
How tall is she?
Oh, 5'5".
Oh, so she's like a setter.
She was a libero.
I don't know what libero.
She was a libero. I mean, she could play all the positions, and I'm not just trying to brag, right? Like she was a ridiculous.
But she wasn't like a 5'11" volleyball.
No, but volleyball was the thing she ended up playing the most. I mean, she was the type of person that just whatever she ended up doing was going to be, she could have.
So she could play soccer. She could play basketball.
I truly believe that she could have been a Division II softball player. She could have been a Division II basketball player. It really just, what did she want to pick? And she picked volleyball. And ideally, she was basically a Division II volleyball player. Like she was really, really good.
Where'd she go?
So she started at Lock Haven and then she ended at Mansfield.
She played college volleyball?
No, she ended up not playing college.
Oh, but she could have if she
okay.
I
very easily.
Mike could have been a Division I field goal kicker.
I believe that. That doesn't shock me at all. Because I think there are people that, I mean, that's the hardest thing to explain to people about college recruiting is like, you go to some of this stuff and they'll go like, well, I made this top 50 whatever in July. And I try not to be a jerk, but I almost want to remind them like, listen, you have to understand, like, there's going to be people playing in December that didn't care about basketball in July. And those people might be better than you. Like they just are. And so the whole college recruiting aspect that's the hardest thing to explain to people. Just because somebody didn't play a sport or isn't at these things doesn't mean that they could not have.
And I think I told you this, because I would have been fascinating to see how high Mike could have gone as a football receiver, because he could run, he had great hands. Tony Romo was all-state in high school in 3 sports:
golf, basketball,
and football.
Football. Was golf one of them? Because he's a ridiculously good golfer.
I never even thought of that. I just assumed it was baseball, football, basketball. But Romo is a great golfer.
He's an insane.
So he must have been playing golf his whole life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've wondered how if Mike could have been, because like he was fast for like Central Pennsylvania white kid fast.
Yeah.
But could he have played it? Could he have played at Bucknell? Could he have played at Ship? And like that, I don't know. Yeah. But he could have. He had a huge leg. He could have kicked anyone.
Oh, totally. We talk about people like that all the time that could have played Division I or Division II in a different sport if that's what they decided to do. So interesting. Good talk.
There we go. So tomorrow we got work from home, Britney Griner, and Other stuff.
Yeah, like Pete Davidson, Kim K.
Pete Davidson, Kim Kardashian. Well, so if you're a Pete Davidson fan, he's available. We're not sure about Kim. Did Kim go back to Kanye? Is that what happened?
Oh, I don't know. We'll look it up. I'll get all the juicy details for you. I don't know what they are right now.
All right, because her marketability might not have been. I think that's one that you're going to pass on.
Who's that? Kim K?
Yeah.
Wait,
if
she's
she calls,
passing on.
No, if she called you, I think you're going to pass on that.
On Kim K.
As hot as she is, as rich as she is, I don't know if you want to deal with that.
Doesn't it just like this sounds awful? Doesn't it just seem like work? Like no. Imagine tomorrow you were gonna start dating one of the Kardashians. To me, it seems exhausting.
I'm with you.
It seems like
even thinking about it is tiring.
How different your world is tomorrow if you started dating a Kardashian.
More money, more problems.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show.
Didn't I do that right?
No, you did that right. You sure to go to
North Central.
You sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
Who sings that?
More money, more problems. Biggie, Mace.
Oh, okay.
Bad Boys for Life.
Okay. Yep. I heard it. Interview the other
P.
day.
Diddy, Puff Daddy.
Well, who is it?
It's all this stuff. You remember the music video when Ben Stiller comes to the door and he's like, Mr. Daddy, Mr. Diddy, P, whatever they call you. You don't remember that at all?
I thought it was Biggie.
What's that?
I thought you just said it was Biggie.
Yes, but there's a music video. Okay, slow down. I just talked about Puff Daddy.
Right.
And you said, what is his name? And I said, do you remember the music video?
No, I wanted to know who sang the song.
Gotcha.
So it was Biggie.
Yes.
But then you just started rambling, naming every rapper that came.
I can't believe you're going to make me do this. You know Bad Boy Records?
Yes.
Okay. So More Money, More Problems, I believe, is on Biggie's album. Okay. However, I'm pretty sure there are features by like Mace, Diddy. I forget who else might be on.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay, so it's Notorious B.I.G., so it's Biggie, and then the featured artists are Mace and Sean Combs. That's the official listing.
And at the time, he was the artist known as Sean Combs.
I don't know what he was at the time. Was he ever Sean Combs?
I thought at that late. Point, I thought really late he went to Sean Combs.
Maybe. Because he's had like 3 years. So anyway, in the one music video, Ben Stiller like knocks on his door.
What is his like name change? Like,
what do you mean?
Like women change their hair color. He's like, I'm gonna go by Diddy. Like, why?
I don't know. Some of the stuff, like Little Bow Wow tried to go to Bow Wow. Do you remember that at all?
Okay. Well, I get that. MC Hammer dropped the MC.
Right.
But like
Kanye's done it. Kanye tried to do the whole Ye thing, and then he went to Yeezus.
But he was
Yeezy. And,
but he was Puffy Combs. He was Puff Daddy.
Yeah, I think it's just like
Puffy,
isn't it just like an art thing? Like you're just reinventing yourself, like you're redefining.
And that's
yourself?
my question. Is that his thing? Like,
I don't know if that's a thing for Diddy. I mean, Diddy's a pretty motivated guy, so maybe. Like for Kanye, he's so like just artistic and out there. Like I could see him being like, for this project, I'm Yeezus. And
correct. I could see that.
But see, for Diddy, I don't know if that's like his persona. Like I don't know. Like I don't think that's cool if you're Diddy to do it for the art. Like I think it's different.
I always thought he was just bored, and he was just like, "Hey, this is what you're gonna call me this now." And they did.
Very possible. It might have been a marketing thing.
It might have been. It might, but I don't even know if it was that elaborate. I think he was just like, call me
this. Thank you for watching the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We will see you tomorrow.
Go O's.